In my previous life. Just because a Taoist priest said I was a jinx. I was cruelly abandoned by my parents. Later, in order to avenge their beloved adopted daughter, they married me off to a nearly 50-year-old man as his wife. Finally, I was abused to death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day when my brother in Senior 3 advised me to go home. The last memory before death lingered in the dim basement. I was chained in the corner like a dog. Yvonne stood in front of me in an elegant little dress. Serafina, I've long advised you not to compete with me. My brother stood beside her. What are you doing here looking at her? She stinks. The same voice rang in my ears. Serafina, as long as you stop opposing Yvonne, I can beg Mom and Dad to let you come home. I came to my senses and stared at Leo in front of me. The pain of having my legs broken by him with his own hands in my previous life surged up from my bones again. Seeing that I didn't reply for a long time, Leo became a little impatient. Yvonne's score in this monthly exam was lower than yours. And she cried for a long time at home. You. I propped my chin and gave him a sweet smile. But brother, she couldn't outperform me even by cheating. This should not be my intention to compete with her. Right? And I'm your real sister, aren't I? Leo was left speechless by my question. When the bell rang, I stood up. Sorry, brother. As an excellent Senior 3 student, I'm going to share my exam preparation experience. Before leaving, I turned my head. Next time, you can let Yvonne come to beg me herself for this kind of thing. Maybe I'll agree. 2. In my previous life, Leo came to persuade me. He said that Yvonne cared a great deal about her face and didn't want to lose face in front of Mom and Dad because of her poor grades. But I was different. Nobody knew that I was a child of the Lin family. Even if my grades suddenly dropped, no one would care. He said that Mom and Dad would arrange for me to directly enter Lin's company to work and also let me return to the Lin family. Caught off guard by this sudden and display of family affection, I agreed to Leo without much hesitation. But all of it was false. After I returned to the Lin family inexplicably lost a large business deal. The prophecy of the jinx from many years ago came true again. I was abandoned by my parents again and sold to an old man as his wife. The old man had a bad temper and some special perversions. He locked me in the basement and raised me like a puppy, whipping my naked body every day. Just like that, I fell into a well-crafted trap, named family affection. 3. After finishing the sharing and returning to the classroom, I saw Yvonne sitting in my seat, intimately close to my desk mate. Ryan, can you explain this question to me one more time? Very rudely, I pushed Yvonne away. Sorry, he's not available right now. When Yvonne saw me come back, the hand holding the pen suddenly tightened. But she still forced out a smile. Sister, I know you have good grades, but you can't stop us from discussing study. Her voice was loud, and several classmates around heard her words and cast curious glances. I responded to her with a sarcastic smile. You need someone to explain a multiple choice question number 1, 2, or 3 times? I suggest you get a better brain here. And what right am I your sister? After successfully making Yvonne leave in anger, I felt much better. Turning my head, I met a pair of eyes full of amusement. Ryan, my best desk mate, and the strongest competitor. Also the person I'm most grateful to. 4. In my previous life, after I agreed to Leo to control my scores and lower my grades, Yvonne still wouldn't let me go. She found a group of hooligans to block me in an alley. I was pinned to the ground by countless hands, and my clothes were torn to shreds. All kinds of disgusting smells filled my nostrils. I thought I was doomed that night. It was Ryan who showed up at the entrance of the alley with his mobile phone in hand. Let her go. I've called the police. That day, I cried in his arms for a very long time. Ryan held me and kept apologizing. I'm sorry. I'm late. But I regretted it. I would rather he hadn't come to save me. On the day I was just locked in the basement, Yvonne came to see me with a photo. In the photo, Ryan was lying in a pool of blood with a knife stuck in his chest. Sarafina. Ryan was retaliated against by those hooligans for saving you. People who get close to you will end up in misfortune. You are the jinx. 5. The hatred buried deep in my heart broke through the surface. And my body couldn't stop trembling. The next second, a big, dry and warm hand covered my trembling fist. Today was an accident. Next time, I won't let her sit in your seat. Don't be angry. Amazingly, my emotions were so easily soothed by Ryan. After school, Yvonne showed up in front of me again and blocked my way. Sister, Dad's birthday is in a few days. You will surely come to the party, right? If you mind me being there, I can stay out of your sight that day. Leo, who should have left long ago, also showed up at the door. Hearing this, he immediately retorted, Yvonne, you are the eldest miss of the Lin family. How can you give way to an outsider? If I had heard these words in my previous life, I would have been sad for a long time. But I had already seen through their true faces long ago. Yvonne and Leo. One is stupid and the other is bad. The two of them are the most well-matched siblings in the world. I heard that the sound of Ryan packing up beside me grew louder. He took my arm and was about to leave through the back door. I pinched his fingers and said to Yvonne blocking the front door, I will go to the birthday banquet in a few days. I hope you don't forget your promise. How could I not go? After all, I have prepared a great gift for them. 6. In the following days, Yvonne became much more docile and didn't come to provoke me again. She didn't want to let me off. She was just holding back a big move, preparing to embarrass me. I had gone through this in my previous life. It seemed that the Lin family could never tolerate me, who was given away not long after I was born. Everything remained the same, except for Ryan. When he sent me to my doorstep for the 3rd time, I said rather embarrassed lie. Actually, you don't need to send me home. I can protect myself. Ryan's home was at the other end of the city. It would take him almost 2 hours for this trip. I really didn't want to trouble him anymore. Ryan neither agreed nor refused. The next day, he followed me again to send me home. But soon I didn't have the mind to dwell on this problem anymore because it was my biological father. Jason's birthday. 7. The location of the birthday banquet was set in a luxury hotel in the city center, and an invitation was required for entry. Naturally, I didn't have one, but I knew that someone would take me in. Unlike the well-dressed people coming and going around me, I was wearing my school uniform, completely disregarding my appearance, and sitting on the steps in front of the hotel. There were fewer and fewer people at the entrance until Yvonne arrived late, just before the banquet was about to start. Turning her head, she walked towards me while holding her skirt. I'm sorry, sister. I forgot to send you an invitation. There was a smug smile on Yvonne's face. Just now, Dad has been pulling me to say hello to uncles and aunts. So it took so long. I took off my earphones and hung them around my neck. There's no one else here. Why are you pretending to be an innocent little white flower in front of me? Ignoring Yvonne's reaction, I lifted my foot and walked into the hotel. Hurry up. Don't let Dad wait too long. It wasn't that Jason was in a hurry. I was in a hurry. I was extremely eager. I couldn't wait to see his expression after receiving my gift. There were a lot of people in the banquet hall. In the past 2 years, the Lin family had become more and more prosperous, and everyone wanted to take this opportunity to establish a relationship with the Lin family. Yvonne followed me. As soon as she saw Jason, she clung to his arm. Dad, I brought my sister here. I heard that she has also prepared a gift for you. Jason glanced at me without much reaction. But Yvonne's words were like throwing a stone into calm water, instantly creating ripples. I remember there are only 2 children in the Lin family. Why does Yvonne call her sister? Where did this country girl come from, dressed like this? She comes to attend President Lin's birthday banquet? The guests around began to whisper. But I wasn't annoyed. I walked up to Jason. Before my hand could be taken out of my bag, Yvonne magically took out a box. Dad, this is my gift for you. The box was opened. and there was a landscape painting inside. My brother told me that you like teacher Xiang's works very much, Dad. So I went to the mountain specially to meet him, and asked him to draw this painting for you. Jason looked very happy. And the guests in the hall also began to praise Yvonne for being sensible and filial. Yvonne pretended to be innocent and asked me, Sister, what about the gift you prepared? In my previous life, my adoptive father heard that I was going to attend Jason's birthday banquet, and spent a great deal of effort to collect an antique and let me give it to Jason. As a result, it was thrown into the trash can by Jason on the spot. Leo walked over from the side. Serafina, if you haven't prepared a gift, you can just say so. I stared straight at Jason. I'll give it later. President Lin, you will surely like it very much. I changed my mind. I didn't want to send the old man's heart up personally to be ruined. 9 After the host announced the start of the banquet, Jason went on stage to give a speech. I took out my mobile phone and sent a message. It's okay. The originally playing background music was paused. And then a conversation between two men came out from the speakers. Master, whether you say she is a disaster star or that our horoscopes don't match, as long as you can persuade my wife to send this daughter away. It was Jason's voice. I looked for my mother, Olivia's figure, and sure enough, I saw an incredulous expression on her face. Then another voice rang out. Mr. Lin, may I ask the reason? The audio was silent for a long time. When everyone present thought there was no follow-up, Jason said, She must be sent away to make room for others. There was no need for too much explanation. Which of the people present wasn't a shrewd person? They could guess my identity as soon as they heard it. Those who were a little older could also know that I was sent away by Jason back then, because a Taoist priest said I was a disaster star. Now it seemed that this was a play he directed and acted all by himself. Jason's face suddenly changed. And he shouted loudly, Who did this? Hurry up and turn it off. I sat in the audience and whistled softly, muttering, Don't be in a hurry. Dad, there is still a big gift for your Lin family. After the audio was turned off, a photo was shown on the display screen behind Jason. I heard Devon let out a shrill scream. All right. Now it's the turn of all the people in the Lin family to have a heart attack. 10 Everyone knows the protagonists in the photo. Yvonne and Leo. The two of them were standing beside the car. Yvonne was pinned against the car door. The man held her waist with one hand and cupped her face with the other. They were kissing on the street without any scruples. Forbidden love between siblings is a huge scandal no matter where it is. Gradually, some people around had taken out their mobile phones to take pictures. But they didn't dare to be too blatant. Jason stared at that photo, his eyes almost popping out. He swung his hand and slapped Leo, who was standing beside him. The crisp sound reached my ears, which made me very happy. I ask you to take good care of your sister. Is this how you take care of her? Yvonne shielded Leo and said pitifully, Dad, it's not true. It's not brother's fault. Not his fault? Olivia's face was extremely cold. She walked up to Yvonne and slapped Yvonne. So do you admit that you seduced Leo? On the stage, Jason protected Yvonne, and Olivia protected Leo. They were quarreling furiously, regardless of what the guests below were like. I was sitting among the crowd, so excited that I almost wanted to run an 800-meter race outside. Yvonne noticed my expression, and suddenly realized that I was the instigator of all this. She covered her face and pointed at me in the audience. Mom and Dad, it must be Serafina who did this to take revenge on the Lin family for abandoning her back then. This photo must be fake. It's a composite. I stood up, and the voices around me suddenly became much quieter. Whether the photo is fake or not, you and Leo know it in your hearts. If you really suspect that it is a composite, you can find a professional to identify it. I smiled and said to Olivia, Ms. Olivia, since you already know that it was Mr. Lin who caused me to be abandoned back then, I suggest you also find out why not long after I was abandoned. Jason brought Yvonne back. I think you will be interested. Jason didn't build his business from scratch. Back then, he married into the Olivia family. After his father-in-law passed away, he took over the Olivia family's enterprise and later renamed it the Lin family. Jason definitely didn't want Olivia to know that he had betrayed her. Walking out of the hotel, I couldn't hide my joy. There was an extra figure beside me. Are you happy? Yes. I haven't been this happy for a very long time. Ryan waved his hand to hail a taxi. Let's go. I'll take you home. 71 Yvonne came to school as usual the next day, seemingly unaffected at all. But she hated me to the core. When we passed by each other in the corridor, she leaned close to me and said through gritted teeth, "Brother has been sent to the grassroots level of the company to do odd jobs. And Mom requires me to get into the top 3 in the grade in the next exam." Serafina, are you satisfied now? I grabbed Yvonne, who was about to leave after speaking. No. Not at all. Compared with the pain I suffered in my previous life. What kind of punishment is this for Yvonne? I will never forget the time when Yvonne showed off in front of me. Serafina, do you know why Dad was so determined to send you away back then? Because I'm also his daughter. Dad loves me. And Brother loves me too. It was also this time that I realized that my being sent away back then was not an accident but man-made. I was too powerless to refute her. So I just held my breath and kicked her. The next day, Leo personally broke my legs, making it impossible for me to stand up ever again. I could only lie on the ground and linger on feebly. Why don't you go to hell? You. Yvonne shook off my hand and left. I don't know how Jason deceived Olivia this time and didn't let her make a big fuss about it. Otherwise, how could Yvonne be in the mood to come to school? It doesn't matter. I still have many chances. 12 in the blink of an eye. It was the next monthly exam. A time for Yvonne to fulfill her promise to Olivia. In my previous life, not only did I control my scores to lower my grades, but I was also forced by Leo to tutor Yvonne. I managed to raise her grades a great deal. To be honest, with the identity of the eldest miss of the Lin family, Yvonne should not have cared about her grades. Anyway, the Lin family would always back her up. But perhaps Leo was too excellent. And combined with her adopted daughter identity, Olivia always had high requirements for Yvonne. It's the same now. In this exam, Yvonne and I were assigned to the same examination room, and she was sitting diagonally behind me. When almost half of the exam time had passed, I finally heard the expected interrogation. The invigilator pressed one hand on Yvonne's test paper and asked, "Student, what are you hiding in your hand?" Yvonne panicked. Clearly she had never been caught cheating before. She stiffened her neck and refused to hand over what was in her hand. The invigilator took her test paper. "In that case, this exam will be directly counted as 0 for you." Yvonne didn't want to hand over the paper. She was afraid that Olivia would really punish her because she was disappointed in her. During the struggle, a note in her hand fell. It was a crib sheet. Another invigilator picked up the crib sheet and said, "If you cheat, all your grades will be marked as 0. We study in a key middle school with an extremely high enrollment rate. The school is very strict about discipline, especially when it comes to cheating in exams. They think this is a behavior of disrespecting teachers, knowledge, and also oneself. Once discovered, a public notice of criticism will be issued." Yvonne unwillingly pulled the invigilator and pointed at me. I just saw her also take out a crib sheet from her pocket. At this moment, the invigilator and other examinees in the examination room all turned their eyes to me, among the gazes full of various emotions. I took out a small piece of paper and handed it to the invigilator. "Is this what you are talking about?" When the note was unfolded, the invigilator's face turned red. He coughed lightly twice and said, "Student, don't do things unrelated to the exam during the exam next time." Yvonne snatched the note and found that it said the invigilator's action of handing out the test papers is so handsome. 13 I knew about Yvonne's cheating in the exam in my previous life. Not only me, but also many people in the school knew about it. But due to Yvonne's identity, they didn't dare to say anything. So before the exam, I sent an anonymous email to the grade director. I told him that someone was going to cheat in this exam and hoped that the invigilation and inspection could be strengthened. Yvonne was really stupid. She didn't even notice that there was one more invigilator this time than before. At this time, she was too afraid of losing her support. In a hurry, she couldn't do anything well. In the past, Yvonne ran amok on campus and always did some unsightly things to retaliate against those who made her unhappy, regardless of whether those people had really done anything wrong. So after Yvonne's cheating was announced throughout the school, no one was willing to get close to her or comfort her. She deserved it. But this was not enough. Counting the days. The nightmare of my previous life was about to come soon. 14 that day. I refused Ryan's offer to send me home. I told him that I had something to do today, and wouldn't go home for the time being. Ryan nodded and said, "Then be careful." I could guess that Yvonne would use the same trick on me today as in my previous life. Because I received Yvonne's malicious gazes countless times today. It was clearly written in them. "Serafina, go to hell." I carried my school bag and walked near the alley. The fear of being nearly raped in my previous life welled up in my heart. I took a deep breath and slowly stepped into the place that had become my nightmare. Sure enough, I was pulled into the alley again. Only this time, I saw Yvonne's figure behind the hooligans. Her face was distorted. "Serafina, it's all your fault. Why did I have to meet you? Go to hell." As soon as she finished speaking, those hooligans walked towards me. The same unpleasant smell brought back those unbearable memories. My eyes turned red. I picked up my school bag and threw it at them. While dodging, I was counting the seconds in my heart. I was waiting for the siren to ring. But still, outnumbered, I was pushed to the ground. Yvonne stood aside, holding her mobile phone to record. The leading hooligan tore my clothes open with one hand. I struggled with my legs, but they were held down by another pair of hands. Yvonne walked closer. Just as she was about to kick me, I heard two voices coming from the entrance of the alley. "All raise your hands and don't move." Serafina. 15 All of us were taken back to the police station in a large group. Ryan expressionlessly rubbed the bruise on my wrist without saying a word. The police asked me. "We received an alarm call at 556 km saying that there was a malicious assault near Taoist Road. Was it you who called the police?" "Yes. I found someone following me at that time. That road was too remote. I was so frightened that I called the police." "Why were you so sure that they would assault? Beat you?" Tears welled up in my eyes. Because Yvonne is the eldest daughter of the Lin family. Not long ago, she was found cheating in the exam. She thought it was me who did it. The police didn't expect this. After writing something in the notebook, they let us leave. Out of the police station. I held back my tears. I shook Ryan's hand. "Don't be angry. I didn't know that Yvonne would attack me today either. I lied to him. I deliberately sent Ryan away because I didn't want to repeat the same mistake and let him get involved in this matter. I hope Ryan can be safe and healthy in this life. Don't be implicated by me again." Ryan lowered his head. "You clearly said that you would protect yourself well. You broke your promise." "Serafina." I was really scared. I heard his voice full of sobs and couldn't say any more lies to him. Under the street lamp, the shadows of the two of us got a little closer. I said, "I'm sorry. It won't happen again." 16 After that, Yvonne didn't come to school for several days. Instead, after the school heard that Yvonne had hired someone to retaliate against me, it issued another public notice of criticism to her throughout the school. Later, when Ryan and I were selected to participate in a competition in the neighboring city, we met Yvonne at the airport. She was wrapped up tightly, but I still recognized her at a glance. There was no way. I had drawn her figure in the basement countless times, just because I was afraid that I would forget her one day. Yvonne was also very surprised to see me. She couldn't control her emotions a little and shouted at me, "Serafina, it's all your fault. I'm going to be sent abroad now. Are you going to steal my parents from me? I hate you. Ryan shielded me behind him and didn't let Yvonne get close to me. Yvonne. I never cared about the Lin family. I just want to live my own life well. It was you, Leo, and the Lin family who came to me on their own initiative. Your current situation is also your own fault. Yvonne still wanted to curse something, but was interrupted by Olivia. Aren't you ashamed enough? Yvonne's body visibly shrank. She put on her mask and sunglasses again and walked to the other side without looking back. When Olivia or Ian and me dragging our suitcases, she asked, "What are you?" "We are going to the neighboring city to participate in a competition." Olivia bypassed Ryan and asked me, "Can we talk?" Amid the broadcast reminder for ticket checking, I faced this woman in front of me who seemed to have a look of regret. "We are leaving. Let's talk when I come back after the competition. You also have a way to get my contact information." Of course I wouldn't refuse the opportunity offered by Olivia. Now she also seemed quite willing to let me take advantage of her. 17 After Ryan and I finished the competition, we asked our head teacher for a few days off and had a great time in the neighboring city for a few days before returning to school to register. Since I rejected Leo in this life, everything has become different. I can't predict their subsequent actions. I can only make a lot of preparations in advance. When Olivia sent someone to pick me up, Ryan was still worried. I patted his arm to tell him not to worry, and then got into the car. I was taken to a private club by the assistant. Olivia had been waiting for a long time. After I sat down, she didn't speak for a long time but just looked at me again and again. "If you have something to say, just say it directly." Olivia sighed. "At the beginning, I firmly disagreed with your father abandoning you. You were so young at that time. Not even a month old. How could I bear to let you leave me? But your grandfather passed away, and the company had an economic crisis. The Taoist priest your father found also asserted that you were a jinx. Mother had no choice either. I couldn't let your grandfather's lifelong efforts be ruined in my hands. But I didn't expect that Jason would steal you while I was asleep. I had a big fight with him, but a few days later he brought back a little girl who looked a lot like you. I was so sad that I could only transfer my love for you to Yvonne. My head ached from listening, and I stopped her. Stop. You didn't call me here today just to say these things, right?" Olivia wiped her tears and took out a document from the bag beside her. "This is the share transfer agreement of the Lin Group. This was originally prepared for you. Your brother also has one." I took the document and asked with great interest, "Does Yvonne have one?" Olivia was stunned for 2 seconds. "Yes. After all, she is our adopted daughter in name. But you have a little more than her. Consider it my compensation to you." I propped my chin and smiled sweetly. "Adopted daughter? Mom, if I tell you that Yvonne is the child of Jason and his mistress?" 18 When Olivia heard me call her mom, she was first surprised and then reacted to what I said. "Impossible. Jason has already shown me the paternity test results between him and Yvonne. He won't lie to me." I neither agreed nor disagreed and just said, "If you don't believe me, you can check again why the company had a crisis at that time. You don't believe that Yvonne appeared so coincidentally either, do you? Haven't you noticed? Yvonne looks so much like Jason. I'll take the shares. Contact me if there's anything." I left with my school bag on my back, leaving Olivia stunned in place. In the following months, I concentrated on preparing for the exam. Olivia also only called me occasionally to ask about my grades and living conditions. When she heard that I was very likely to be admitted to University A, she not only promised that I could directly enter the company for an internship in the future, but also sent me a large sum of money as a reward. I accepted it. Who would say no to money? When I heard news about the Lin family again, it was already after my college entrance examination. By then, the results had been announced. I filled in the business major of University A as I wished, and Ryan applied for the medical major of University A. I asked him why he chose this major. He just smiled, and his eyes looking at me were very gentle. What made me even happier was that the Lynn group was renamed and changed back to Olivia's family name. I quite admire Olivia. She is decisive when she should be. She followed the clues I mentioned that day to investigate. Not only would she find out that the prophecy that I was a jinx was made by Jason, but also that the economic crisis that happened by chance at that time was deliberately caused by Jason. If she dug deeper, she would find that Jason could also be related to my grandfather's death. He had long been dissatisfied with Olivia's overbearing and autocratic ways. He thought that his tolerance of her was because he had to bow his head under the eaves. So he had an affair. His mistress was more virtuous and gentle than Olivia, and would never ask Jason to do anything, which greatly satisfied his self-esteem. Later, Olivia and his mistress were found to be pregnant almost at the same time. Perhaps from that time on, he had been thinking of getting revenge on Olivia. He had planned for a long time. First, he killed his father-in-law. Then, when Olivia was in the pain of losing a loved one, he found a high-sounding reason to abandon me. In his heart, Yvonne should be the eldest daughter of the Lynn family. My existence would only be an obstacle to him. How did I come to know these things? All of it was what Yvonne told me as something to show off when she came to visit me in my previous life. I hate her so much that I firmly keep her words in my heart. Never forgotten. 19. Jason was forcibly stripped of all his property and driven out of the house. Although Leo was allowed to stay, Olivia was still not at ease leaving him in the company in the end. So she sent him abroad. She hoped that after spending a few years abroad to mature, he would become much more sensible. On the night before Leo left for abroad, I took the number Olivia gave me and sent a message to Leo. Brother, the feeling of kissing your own sister must be very nice. Right? I hope you can still be as affectionate as ever in abroad. After sending the message, I added him to the blacklist. I was so happy that I rolled straight on the bed. Seeing this, Ryan shook his head and sat beside me helplessly, silently smoothing out the wrinkles on the bed. Later, one day when Olivia and Ryan were having dinner together, Olivia went to the washroom. The mobile phone on the table rang, and the name on the caller ID was Yvonne. I winked at Ryan and picked up the phone. Mom, it's been a long time since you last sent me living expenses. I replied to her. Yvonne, don't you have your own mother? Why do you call my mother to ask for living expenses? After hearing my voice, Yvonne first cursed in a low voice and then hung up the phone. 20. After graduating from university, I directly entered Olivia's family group to work. Because of my excellent working ability, my position was promoted again and again. On the night before I set off to go abroad to negotiate a contract, for the first time in a long while, I dreamed about things in my previous life. Returning to the basement again, I just felt horrified. The cold air seeped into my body through my pores, and I lay on the ground trembling continuously. The door opened. Yvonne, wearing a beautiful little dress, walked in holding Leo's hand, looking at me with disheveled hair and chained. She said, Serafina, I've long advised you not to fight against me. Why did you come back to ruin my life again? Leo stood beside her, showing his disgust without any concealment, and was about to leave while pulling Yvonne. Oh, I remembered. This was the day I died, and also the day I was reborn. Yvonne pushed Leo out. Brother, you go out and wait for me for a while. I have something to say to her. After Leo left, Yvonne took out a bottle of potion from her bag and poured it into my mouth. Seeing that you are living such a miserable life, it's better for you to die. I had no strength to resist. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew in the basement, and the dim yellow light bulb flickered twice. Yvonne mumbled a few words, and then stood up and left, complaining as she walked. What a lousy basement. It's so scary. This was the last memory of my previous life. 21. The next day, I was about to go out with my suitcase, but Ryan took it with one hand. I'll go with you. I was a little puzzled and asked him, aren't you busy at the hospital? I've taken a leave. In the car, I pestered Ryan to ask the reason. Unable to resist Miko Kerti. Ryan told me. I had a nightmare yesterday. I dreamed that you were killed by someone. I'm worried about you. My heart skipped a beat. And I comforted him. Dreams are the opposite of reality. With you by my side, surely nothing will happen. Everything went very smoothly. And I successfully signed a large contract. But just when I was attending a dinner party, a person covered in wounds rushed in. She held a knife in her hand. And no one around dared to stop her. Others might not recognize her. But I couldn't fail to recognize her. Yvonne. I didn't expect to meet her here. I wanted to dodge. But my body was frozen in place and couldn't move. I could only watch helplessly as Yvonne rushed towards me. With a crazy and eerie smile all over her face. She ran and shouted, "Kill you. As long as I kill you, Mom and Dad will love me again." She raised her hands high. And the tip of the knife glinted coldly. At the very last moment, Ryan protected my body and kicked Yvonne away. But his hand was still cut with a long gash. The knife fell to the ground. And Yvonne was subdued by the late arriving security guards. Ryan ignored his injured wound and asked me, "Are you okay?" I shook my head and, after saying, "Excuse me," took Ryan to the hospital. Sitting in the hospital, I finally recovered from the abnormal state just now. I was afraid that I would really be killed by Yvonne again. And also afraid that Ryan, who came to protect me, would end up the same as in my previous life. After Ryan had his arm bandaged, he touched my head with a relieved look. "Fortunately, you're okay." I was so worried that my eyes turned red. "What would I do if something happened to you?" Ryan sighed helplessly and changed the topic. "Fortunately, I came with you." He pressed my head against his shoulder. "I can't lose you again." 22. After hearing about this matter, Olivia was extremely angry and also regretted not dealing severely with Yvonne in the first place. Because of the cooperation relationship between the two companies and the fact that I was almost killed on their premises, that company urged the police station to quickly come up with a result. Only then did I know that Yvonne had been having a very tough time these years. After she was sent abroad, it wasn't long before Jason was driven out of the house. Olivia also refused to pay her living expenses. Yvonne, who was used to being extravagant, couldn't change her spending habits at all for a while. She had called Olivia many times, but Olivia didn't answer. The only time the call got through, she thought Olivia had forgiven her. But it was my voice that came from the other end. In despair, she thought of Leo. She tried to ask Leo for help, but was rejected. Leo asked her, "Did you already know that you and I are related by blood?" Yes. She had known it for a long time. Since she was brought back to the Lin family, Jason often said in front of her, "Don't forget, Olivia is not your mother. One day our family will be reunited." But she still kept it from Leo and enjoyed Leo's love and protection as a sister and lover. Before returning to China, Ryan accompanied me to see Yvonne for the last time. As soon as she saw me, she started to cry. She said, "Sister, I know I was wrong. I will never compete with you again. Please let me go." Hearing these words, my thoughts drifted away. Once I also cried and begged Yvonne to let me go. But she still didn't. I said, "Yvonne, it was you who started the fight with me first. People close to you become unfortunate. You are the jinx." I threw these words back at her intact. 23. Sitting on the plane back to China, I held Ryan's uninjured hand. The sunlight outside the window shone on his face. Suddenly, I thought of the question I asked him when he confessed his love to me. I said, "Ryan, how long have you liked me?" In the sunlight, the young man smiled brightly. "Maybe as long as 2 lifetimes." Extra story: my name is Ryan. I like Serafina. I fell in love with her on a rainy day. The rain was so heavy that it made people feel cold all over. Serafina saw a kitten taking shelter from the rain under a tree. After thinking for a while, she left her umbrella for the cat to keep off the rain and ran back home with her coat on. That was the first time my heart skipped a beat. She was very kind and strong. She was my toughest competitor at school. But the person who was still the top student in the whole school in the last exam dropped directly to more than 300 in the next monthly exam. I was worried that something had happened to her. But she didn't tell me the reason and just shook her head silently. I knew it was wrong to do so. But I still chose to secretly follow her after school and send her home. Only on that day. I was almost half an hour late leaving school because I was helping the teacher count the scores. I thought I couldn't send her home that day. When I walked to an alley on the way, I heard Serafina's cry for help. Desperate and shrill. I called the police and then told the person on the phone that I had called the police. But the police came too slowly and failed to catch those hooligans. I took off my coat and put it on Serafina. She hugged me and cried for a long time. Her tears soaked my clothes and were engraved in my heart like a brand. Since that day, I had never seen Serafina again. And I, because of being retaliated against, died in that alley at that time, miraculously. I didn't disappear after I died. Instead, I floated in the air in the form of a soul. I could move around the world without any hindrance and easily found Serafina. She was locked in a dim basement, with no sunlight and no windows. I saw Vaughn from our class come in and show Serafina my dead body. She said, "People close to you will eventually become unfortunate. You are the jinx." No, it's not. I wanted to refute, but no one could hear my voice. I just stayed in the basement with Serafina all the time. Until she was killed by Yvonne. I hated so much. I didn't understand why she had to go through all this. She clearly hadn't done anything wrong. I thought that if there was a second chance, I would surely protect her well. She should have a different life. A strange wind blew in the basement. That was the proof of my soul's dissipation. I was reborn. When I opened my eyes, I saw Yvonne sitting beside me. She asked me questions coyly, but all I had in my heart was hatred for her. Until a familiar voice rang out. "Excuse me, he is not available right now." I turned my head and Serafina was smiling sweetly. I quietly said to her in my heart, "Long time no see."